All right, so today we're going to dive into something pretty amazing. We're going to look at what it actually takes to master a new language. And let me tell you, it's a wild ride. It's a journey that kicks off with, just forcing yourself to memorize stuff and ends up as this really deep personal quest for fluency. We're talking about going from just rote learning to real flow.
You know, this quote, this hits home for so many people trying to learn a new language, right? It's that constant little voice in your head translating everything. It's the huge gap between just knowing the words and actually thinking in the language. So the big question is, how do you get from one side to the other? Well, believe it or not, the entire story we're about to unpack is the answer to that very question.
Okay, so let's rewind and start at the very beginning. Part 1, the foundation. This whole story kicks off not because someone wanted to learn English, but because they had to. It all starts in a classroom in Pakistan.
So right from the get-go, the reason for learning was totally external. English wasn't this cool tool to connect with people or, a window into a new culture. No, it was just another subject you had to pass. And that context, man, that is so important because it basically set the stage for how everything was taught and learned. And the way they taught it, it's called the grammar translation method. The whole thing was just mechanical. Just picture this. You're cramming like 12 different tenses, not so you can have a conversation, but just so you can circle the right answer on an exam. The goal was never to actually use the language, it was just to pass. And yeah, that builds a foundation, I guess, but it's a super fragile. And look, that system, it kind of worked for a little while, but then bam, part 2, the turning point. A real personal crisis hits. Because in college, that whole foundation built on just memorizing stuff, it gets put to the ultimate test, and it just completely collapses.
I mean, can you even imagine the shock? The old trick of just memorizing and translating sentence by sentence, it's useless when you're staring at a huge textbook on some complicated subject. Suddenly, grades are dropping, and everything you thought you knew about learning just isn't cutting it anymore.
And this right here, this is the real heart of the story. Our narrator gets called out, scolded by a teacher in front of everyone. It's a total low point. But that moment, that feeling of pure shame, that's what sparks the change. It's the catalyst. All of a sudden, it's not about grades. It's personal, really personal.
So out of that terrible moment comes part 3, the breakthrough. This is the comeback. This is where our narrator completely takes charge of their own learning, goes from just trying to write to wanting to teach, and finds not just success, but a whole new purpose in life.
What they did was pretty incredible. It was this huge shift from just passively cramming information to actively creating something. They went back, rebuilt that shaky foundation, got really good at the translation mechanics, and then, and this is the absolute key, they started writing their own ideas directly in English. They called it self-writing. And with that, they could finally pass exams using their own brain, not just regurgitating things they'd memorized.
And that success, it changes absolutely everything. The motivation completely flips. It's not about the outside pressure of passing a test anymore. It's this internal fire. And a whole new goal pops up, taking this skill and using it to help other people, to become a teacher.
All right, now things get really interesting. We're at part 4, the immersion test. The journey takes a huge, unexpected turn, a move to China. And this forces a complete rethinking of everything, where the new rule of the game is fluency, not perfect accuracy.
And wow, the difference is night and day. Back in Pakistan, it was all about grammar rules and that constant translation in your head. The result, not much confidence, not much fluency. But in China, you had to talk to people every single day. So the focus had to change to pure communication. It just flipped the whole learning experience upside down. Practical skills suddenly mattered way more than textbook theory.
Okay, and here's a massive takeaway for anyone learning anything, really. The decision was made to just stop translating and start speaking, even if it meant making a ton of mistakes. And guess what happened? Yeah, the grammar mistakes went up for a bit, but fluency and confidence, they went through the roof. It was a trade-off for sure. Give up on being perfect to get that real-world flow. And that brings us to the last part of this incredible journey, part 5, the final pursuit. This is where it all comes together. Learning becomes integrative, which is just a fancy way of saying it's driven by something way deeper, way more personal.
So we're way past just passing exams or getting a job. This is what experts call integrative motivation. Basically, it's wanting to learn the language so you can really connect with the culture and the people who speak it.
The goal isn't just about making yourself understood anymore. It's about getting that native-like flow, just for the sheer joy of mastering it.
And at this point, the strategies get super advanced. You're not sitting down consciously studying grammar rules anymore. It's all about absorption. You're listening to native speakers every single day. You're starting to think in English, maybe even dream in it. You're focused on the big ideas, the meaning, and you just let the grammar happen automatically. It's like you start hearing the music of the language, you know? The way words link together, the contractions, all the little things that make the difference between sounding like a textbook and sounding truly fluent.
So, this whole journey leaves us with one last thing to think about. What's the real reason we try to master any skill? Is it just about passing a test? Or getting a better job? Or is it about something more? Is it about that inner drive to connect, to feel a sense of fulfillment? That moment when a skill stops being something you just do and it actually becomes a part of who you are?